I will now introduce a young man who is, in some way, shape, or form, my protege. His father knows good friends of our family. He's a graduate of the Nova Dual program. He went to the United States School, the Rome School, and then after that decided to become a member of the bar here, Florida, New York, California, Washington, D.C. He speaks many languages. He's a graduate of Dale Carnegie training. He's a Toastmaster in Florida, so keep track of his audible pauses. If he says or kind of like the traditional opera attendees, you're authorized to throw a tomato or something at him, okay? He's going to be speaking on unique angles and dimensions associated with representing people in the international, more importantly, world between Italy and the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Valerio Spinaci.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody had time last night. All those of you who attended, and we're expecting even more fun and good time tonight and tomorrow night. Thank you for attending the event in Rome. We just had a beautiful presentation from Raymond on the historical influence of Roman law, which we have to study in school here in Italy as a mandatory class. Everybody has to study because, of course, it's part of the history of our law in particular. Now, I prepared a beautiful mind map that was showing before, but for some reason disappeared. So in case you can, I'll see if I can make it appear again. Otherwise, I'll just ask you to follow. So the topic of my speech is really very, very practical, and it's very, very, it's going to be very short because of time constraint, and very, we want to be very effective and very useful for you to use in your everyday practice, which can be used in every practice, no matter whatever it is that you do in your office. In particular, how many of you have international clients? How many of you have ever dealt with international clients? How many of you have ever dealt with Italian clients? So the majority, of course, being the National Italian American Bar Association, I guess a lot of you have Italian clients. Now, probably 90% of my practice, I practice, as Paul gave an introduction. Now, Washington, D.C. is not part of my bar exams, but I did pass the bar exam in several jurisdictions when I was fresh out of law school. Why I did that? Because I didn't know where I wanted to practice, and I decided to keep the options open and be able to assist clients from Italy, of course, I'm from Rome, so from my own country, and I decided to have as many options as I could in order to help them when coming and dealing with the United States of America, which is, of course, comprised of 50 states, and each one has its different peculiarities. So now I found myself practicing in Florida because of many things, although I can practice also in other states. But the issues that I encountered during my practice, which focuses on immigration law and also on a general practice, because really when the clients come in, they don't know exactly what they need. They come and they say, I have this problem. I need to buy some real estate. I want to come. The most recurring question is, how do I come to the United States? And that's for every client from Spain, from Portugal, France, South America. So everybody wants to know how to get to the United States, possibly stay there, or spend time there, or spend money there. And during these last 8 years, I came across a lot of issues that were they were so recurring that I decided to share them with you and maybe give you an idea of how we solve them so that you can use those tips in your daily practice. And the first issue, since you almost all of you raise your hands when I asked if you have international clients, how many of you had ever had an issue with fees with international clients, especially Italian clients? So the issue that we encounter and this is really in civil litigation, it can be immigration, it can be real estate. Often the international client is not used to the fee system in the United States. So they're not accustomed to hourly fees. So every time you try to explain a client how the system works and how we get paid by the hour, because that's what we do, we give advice, and so we spend time to give that advice because we already spent time and invested time before to obtain the knowledge that we are now sharing with the client. So a lot of international clients do not understand and do not often also have trust issues with the lawyer, because they say, how do I know how many hours you spent on this case? Particularly now, just so you understand the different culture between the United States and Italy. Italy just passed a law among lawyers that we have to give a fixed fee to the client. So this is actually unacceptable and unethical in the United States, because sometimes we cannot determine in advance what our final fee is going to be. So we have to tell the client, it depends on the difficulty of the case, it depends on the time we spend on the case, it depends on many, many factors. In Italy, the law is now that you have, if the client asks, and sometimes even if the client doesn't ask, you have to give a fixed fee, a fixed amount to the client as your final fee. So this is the two worlds that we are trying to combine. So in these years, we worked hard to find alternative fees arrangements that could be helpful for the client, so that the client could understand and accept, and they go, of course, from the contingent fee, which you all know. Contingent fee means a percentage of course, a percentage of the final amount that's going to be recovered, so which is going to be contingent upon the recovery. And this is something that in Italy is illegal. So the Italian system does not allow lawyers to get paid with a percentage of the amount in controversy, because they don't want the lawyer to have a conflict of interest when working on the client's behalf, because they would be let's say they would be tempted to somehow not respecting the law in order to get paid, which sometimes unfortunately happens. So how do you combine that? How do you combine the contingent fee, our contingent fee in the United States, and the lack of the contingent fee in Italy? And this is a case we have every day. Just this morning, Paul was mentioning a client that needs representation, but the Italian lawyers say, oh, I cannot do that on contingency. Why? Because the law forbids it. So we have to determine, for example, the amount that is going to be, the possible amount that is going to be recovered, and sort and discuss with the lawyer, with the Italian lawyer. So either we advance the money with the Italian lawyers if we're co-counseling on the case, or we determine that once we have a fixed amount in mind, we decide that that amount is going to be paid as a flat fee rather than as a contingent fee. We use other systems. So we use an hourly fee that is a minimal fee that gets a premium in case of success. So you get paid $40 an hour, $50 an hour, and then when you, in reality, if you win, then that $50 become $400 because you succeeded in the case, which makes it a hybrid that doesn't violate the Italian ethical rules, but it doesn't violate the American rules either. Or you can have other arrangements. You can be creative. The best way to convince an Italian to hire you is to give him a flat fee or a cap to the fee, because so they feel that they can predetermine the risk they're incurring in that fee. But other than that, the more creative you can be in order not to give an open retainer to an Italian or international customer or international client, the best is for the client. And another thing that is very important with international clients is the communication. And we discuss all the time in our office, because the international client is not like the client that lives across the street from you, and we only have this problem with clients who live across the ocean. Why? Because for some reason, they send the money overseas. Now, when they send you the money and you live across the street, somehow in their mind, there's like, oh, I can go and get them. You know, I know where they live or things like that. When they're sending money across the board, they're always asking, oh, is it working? So every time you receive constant communication from clients on WhatsApp, now Facebook, all sorts of social media to get constant communication. And so it's important to really set the expectation clear at the beginning and make sure that the clients understand that it's very difficult to communicate with all the clients every day, every moment. Sometimes it's helpful, and I recently started using systems that allow the client to know the status of their case online. So with the system management systems that allow them to actually check the status of the case. That's an helpful situation. Now another, how many of you have had difficulties or issues or just sometimes spend time deciding what's the best jurisdiction where to file or where to discuss a case? So the divorces, credit collections, all sorts of cases involving in civil litigation involving international clients. Now, while we always try to use an American court, first of all because we're United States lawyers, the majority at least here, so you want to litigate in your jurisdiction. But compared to most courts outside of the United States courts are more efficient, are more quick, the process is expedited, and most likely you will find, you will actually recover. Because if you compare, Marco yesterday gave you a very interesting review of the Italian civil system, and it's almost like tossing a coin, because you never know whether the litigation will finish during your lifetime. So that's really the issue in Italy rather than the legal issue. So in this case, we generally push the client to file the action in the United States. And sometimes this is also, and this for Carolyn, who gave you a great yesterday a great review of the family law court in the United States. It's important because when dealing with Italian clients, you should know if ever you have an Italian client who's married, who is having some marital problems. In Italy, the divorce is not automatic, like in the United States. So you cannot file directly for a divorce. You have to first obtain a legal separation, which is something that in the United States does not exist as a legal concept. So first you apply for legal separation, and then you can file for a divorce. How is that relevant? Because you may receive a client that is convinced that he's going through a divorce. He comes to you and says, oh, we filed for legal separation, so now we're ready to separate entities. And you're like, no, you're still married. All the laws that would apply to you as a married person will still apply to you until you actually finalize the divorce, which is different from the legal separation. So you have to really make sure that you understand these differences, because otherwise you may find, for example, in real estate, you have a lot of consequences, legal consequences when a couple is married. Just imagine for those that are practicing in Florida, all the homestead exemptions, the homestead protection that is only for people who are married. So people that are legally separated in Italy can still have that protection in the United States, even if they don't know. Or as an immigration, as our colleague Rafael, who also represents immigration clients, he knows if the clients are still legally separated in Italy but still married, they can still have access to immigration status for their spouse. So these differences in jurisdiction really can change the entire case. Now, when we advise clients, we tell them, okay, you want to divorce? if you have the requirements, then you can file in the United States. It costs you the same money to file in Italy, but you have to satisfy the requirements in the United States. The main requirement for divorce cases is the minimum residency requirement. So you need the client to be residing in the state where you're filing. For example, for Florida, 6 months. So they need to reside in Florida for 6 months at least to have access to Florida courts. And this brings the secondary issue of their immigration status. Can they reside in the United States? Can they actually affirm their residence in the United States? And this I'm going to touch a little at the end. But this is the first concern. The second concern is also, what about, and this also I connect to Marco, who gave you an idea of the principle under which you can recover for the legal fees from the opposing counsel when the party loses in Italy, which doesn't happen in the United States. So this is a big difference. So we advise the client to use the Italian forum only when we want to defend the case, because in that case, it's perfect. We're here, we're sitting in Italy, and so every time it's not clear if there was, for example, if the client is Italian and there's an Italian company or an Italian person that can argue that they need to be sued in Italy. For example, we had 2 cases recently with companies that were sued in New York, for example, but the company was established in Italy. They were actually dealing in the United States through distributors and through other parties, but they didn't have a physical presence in New York. So we filed for, of course, a motion to dismiss, and we asked the judge to litigate in Italy. So we asked the other party to come litigate in Italy, which it basically opens the discussions for a long conversation. So and by the way, I'm giving you a very general discussion, and then I'm happy if you had particular case to brainstorm with you and do more of a Q&A session rather than a speech, so we can actually maybe see some real time and real case. So this was for the defense, and for the divorce that we saw. When do we advise to use the Italian court is for any family matters with kids involved, because of course Italian courts are very traditional, and the judge will give a lot more. Well, especially to the mothers, but not only to the mothers, because also Italian laws or Italian courts are shifting. But generally speaking, when there are kids involved, the Italian courts is gonna exercise a lot more control than the American court on the family. And we had a case once that was a nightmare, because you know that the basic principle of the law that you have one court deciding the case. So you have one judge that will decide your case. And the double jeopardy, and there is the principle that comes from the Roman tradition of res judicata. When you have something that has already been judged, should not be tried again. So in this case, we had 2 courts, one in Italy and one in the United States, that were continuing to move forward with the same case on different issues. So the one in the United States was the same case, and it was a child custody issue. And basically, both judges, the judge in Italy and the judge in the Florida Keys, didn't want to leave jurisdiction, didn't want to relinquish jurisdiction, and they wanted to keep trying the case until the end. So we had conflict. We have conflict in some orders. So the wife was here with the kids in Italy, and the husband was in the United States asking for the kids to get back. And Paul knows, because Paul tried this case, and he was arguing in front of the judge in Florida to obtain to actually leave the jurisdiction with the court in Italy. And while he was in Italy, the judge wanted to keep jurisdiction and would not relinquish. And would say, we have jurisdiction over the kids. The kids are staying here. We're not gonna leave a judge in the United States decide over the sorts of this family. So this is very important, because in that case, what do? You have two judges. You have to comply with the orders of one, and at the same time you have to comply with the order of the other judge. And this is probably the most extreme case that you can have. Then another difference that is between the two systems that is important is we in Italy, we don't have the concept or the idea of the trust account. So the trust account and even the escrow account does not exist as a concept. So the lawyer here cannot and does not generally keep money for the clients. Why is this relevant? Because sometimes the lawyer is the party who finds very difficult to collect the money from the client, and the client may just take the mandate off the day before. So the day before getting their big settlement, the client say, okay, thank you very much, lawyer. I didn't like you since the beginning, and now you know what? I'm signing this letter, so my brother or my cousin is representing me while you did all the work, and now sue me. And this opens the door for another 10 years of litigation against your own client to collect the sums. So why is this relevant? Again, because if you're co-counseling or if you're treating with clients in Italy or with mothers in Italy, can be tomorrow you're going to learn about real estate investments and in the United States and in Italy, and estate planning in the United States and Italy. And this is very important. In Italy, we don't have the trust account because we don't have the trust. So we don't trust anyone. So the trust as you know it. So the estate planning and it doesn't exist in Italy.
Is it unethical for a lawyer in Italy to retain the monies on behalf of the client?
Absolutely. It is. So
I have a matter right now that a client of mine, I'm doing a probate in New York,
mm-hmm.
and there's an ancillary probate in Sicily. He went to the Sicilian lawyer first, and the Sicilian lawyer has been selling property for him with a procura, and has been receiving the money.
Correct.
And not sending it to my client in New York.
Correct. What do you do there? You sue the lawyer. There's no other way. And maybe the lawyer already sold and already spent the money. That's a big problem. In fact, this and I had a client 2 weeks ago. A client came. They need a procura, a power of attorney. They wanted to give a power of attorney to their cousin to sell the house. And they say, what do I do? How do I make sure that after my cousin sold the house, then he give me the money? I say, you can make sure. You have to trust your cousin. That's the only way. And that's not a legal institute. It's like you have if your cousin decides that he's gonna sell the house, get the money and run, he will do that. So the solution could be you hire a lawyer. So the lawyer, you give the power of attorney to a lawyer. So in theory, you can trust a lawyer more than your cousin. Which at least the lawyer can have an insurance. Actually, now it's mandatory for a lawyer in Italy to have professional liability insurance, and then on malpractice as well. You maybe they have more assets than your cousin, but it is a different,
Is there like a grievance committee that my client?
There is, and the grievance committee in Italy, I don't want to say it's a joke, because it's not a joke, but really it's not as effective as the United States bar associations, where you file a complaint and you really care about losing your license. There are so many. In Italy, so while you in the United States, the legal profession is so protected that you have, it's losing your bar license is probably, your bar license is probably the most important thing you have. In Italy, there are so many people practicing law without a license, including first in the category, the commercialisti, the accountants. So because in Italy taxes are so high, the most important person in your life is not going to be your lawyer, it's going to be your accountant. So the accountants, all the accountants here are basically practicing law without a license. They give you advice on how to incorporate, form a company, how to write your contracts, how to create your corporate structure, how to everything, the estate planning. So here, and they're the first, but then real estate agents prepare the contract. It's not like in the United States that you can only fill the blanks in a contract because the contract is prepared by the lawyer and filled in by the real estate agent. Here, the real estate agent says, oh, don't worry, don't call your lawyer, I'll do everything, I'll take care of this, I'll take care of that, and you pay me my commission. They're stupid because they're not losing anything, because you can have their commission plus the lawyer fee that really protects the client's interest, while the real estate broker is actually a broker. So he only cares about closing the deal so that he'll make his commission. But because of that, you will have a lot of people in Italy really not caring a lot about the bar grievances. And you have people that may be convicted and are practicing law, or that in America would definitely have their bar license at least suspended, if not revoked, and they are still practicing every day in court. Or they're actually in the parliament, but this is another story. Yeah, of course. Of course, and it's a very interesting situation.
So are you there's a realtor for the seller, and they get the money? Does the realtor hold the money? And I mean, is there a way to go out, or is there a title company, anything like that?
In this case, now there are a few companies that are starting to not really, because there is no escrow. There is no an escrow account as we think and we know about in the United States. So what happens is, the real estate agent can say, give me the check, direct it to the other party, I keep the check. But then if the real estate agent is a friend with the other party, can give the other party. Or sometimes you say, I'll give you a check, and what happens in the United States, if you give a deposit, for example, for a real estate property you're buying, you give the check to the escrow agent or to the title agency. And now what happens is the title agent gives you back the check if the deal doesn't close, or gives the check to the seller if it doesn't close for the buyer's fault.
Right.
Here, it actually, because there is a passage of money, so you're actually in theory giving the money to the seller. Then, if the deal doesn't close for the seller's fault, he has to give you twice of the money. So he gives you back the money, plus he gives you basically the same money back. So there was actually a big scam here where people were giving the deposit, $100,000 on $1 million villa in a beautiful place, and then the next day, the person very well dressed coming in, oh yeah, I want to buy this apartment, perfect, yes, this house, perfect, here's 100,000 euros. Then he was leaving. Then the next day, a bunch of gypsies were coming here with all the things that, oh, we're moving here tomorrow. It's like, the owner was like, what are you talking about? I sold it to a nice guy. Yeah, but he's our brother. We're coming here and mounting all this. And so the guy was canceling the contract because he didn't want a gypsy community to decrease the value of all the houses around. And so he had to give back the 100,000 plus another 100,000. And they were doing that all over Rome, and it was a crazy scam.
Larry, I understand there is, however, a very specific, well-documented deed system.
Yes, that's correct.
If you engage an attorney who's knowledgeable in real estate, you can find out who the real owner is.
Absolutely.
So that is clear, right?
Absolutely.
So you know who the owner is. And if you
Absolutely.
know who the owner is, and if you have an attorney, even though he doesn't hold the money, there must be a way to conclude the transaction to your satisfaction.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And I'm not in any way only criticizing the Italian. I'm just exasperating and exaggerating a little bit the differences between the two systems, so you understand how important it is to combine, and how important it is for us to be all here together, because the connections you can make with local lawyers and for the local lawyers to connect with you in the United States is very important, just for these small things that sometimes can really make the difference in a big transaction.
How would you recommend then, in a real estate transaction, affecting the transfer of the funds? What is the safest way? You said already lawyers can't hold money, so what is the safest way?
In this case, I personally, and this is what I do, being a lawyer,
Yes.
a member of the bar in Italy and in the United States, I always apply United States standards with United States companies, United States fund. We try as much as we can to move, as I was saying, not only the jurisdiction for lawsuits, but sometimes apply the legalities that we developed in the years in the United States in order to basically bring our best practices in Italy where they don't have them. And so when we work many times, Marco, with Romolo you met, or with other lawyers, Andrea De Re, other people that could not be here, but maybe you met in other occasions. And every time we insist to use our American law firm and saying, we should get the money from the client, so we are entitled to do that, authorized by the bar, we can keep them in the trust account, make sure that everything is fine, connect with the lawyer, with the notary, which, as you probably learn, and you will learn tomorrow from a notary in Italy, from an Italian notary, Zagami, you will learn about also that particular real estate and estate planning in Italy. But my recommendation is to use the United States as much as you can, not because the United States are better, but because the system is more flexible and it allows for more things than the inflexible Roman-based Italian system. And this pretty much concludes my presentation. Before I can just give you a brief, a brief overview. Two more things. Sorry. One is there are no another difference that some of you may be interested in. No class actions, or better, we do have the class action system which was introduced very recently, but the class action doesn't work here because there are so many limits to its application. So you have to have a consumer association that starts the class action, so you can just be a lawyer with a client saying, oh, I have this problem, and because of the timing and because of all these other issues that we've already covered, is not as effective as in the United States. So also for the United States, for this class action, we try to move the action in the United States using maybe a foreign client that was affected, but the United States is the topic. And then, as I said, and this comes back to my main area of practice of dealing with this international client, which is most often starts with the immigration part. You want to make sure that you check the immigration status of your clients when they come to the United States. And if you have real estate clients or business company or companies that are coming to the United States, you want to make sure that your client is legally in the United States. And as I was saying, Rafa will confirm that it's very important that because even though the immigration is a non-science, because at the end it's all about the discretion of the officer at the entry, you have so many people that are coming to the United States with the wrong status, and they don't even know about it. They think they're legal, they think they're not doing anything wrong, and sometimes they even get mad when you tell them. You say, you're not supposed to be here and working. I say, oh, why? I'm here, I'm just doing business, I'm just having some meetings. So it is very important to check their immigration status, and you may even find that because of their nationality, because of their citizenship in a particular country, they may have access to a particular solution. So, for example, Italian citizens have the opportunity to apply for in particular 2 visas that were designed with a treaty between the United States and Italy, were designed to give them permission to be in the United States, to bring money to the United States, and to trade goods between the United States and Italy. So those visas are important tools that you can give to your clients in order for them to be legally in the United States. And I don't want to get too much into this, but it's an important consideration to make whenever you treat with an international client. So I'm happy. I don't know, are there any other questions?
So how do you handle a situation where someone comes to you who has a very good case, but he's just getting by living? He can't pay you. So what do you do?
Italian client?
Yeah.
That's a question for Marco. So if it's an Italian client, in Italy, with going from an Italian lawyer, what they would do is, okay, you really don't have money to pay? Okay, we'll see what we can do. And they somehow arrange, they get creative. So sometimes they say, okay, you'll pay me this fee, but you'll pay me, in 2 years, expecting that the case may finalize in 2 years. Or you pay me $100 now, so I know that, whatever money you have now, and then you pay me, when I recover, you pay me $2,000 when I finish the first motion, and then $2,000 when I finish the second motion. So you try to arrange a payment plan that your client can stand.
But you're saying at the end of the case, well, that really is a contingency fee. I mean, well, supposedly the case it's $100,000.
Absolutely.
$100,000 comes the end of the case. In other words, if you're not successful, tough luck, you don't get it back.
Right.
But it's like you're really operating as if it's a contingency. You're based on your success.
The answer to that is this. The lawyer's fee is always contingent. Because you never know if you're going to, and it's contingent not only to the lawyers winning your case, but also to the lawyer not fighting with the client, not having a problem with, so it's really a tough profession, as much as in the United States, but with this additional hurdle.
If I may, Louis.
Go ahead.
There is an answer I want to give, Valerio, if I may. Not to Valerio, not to Louis, but to Hope, because we're Hope Ruby.
Hope.
I don't know if she's here now. When I finished my speech yesterday, she came and she said, okay, Marco, why are you a lawyer? Why are you not a doctor? Because it seems like you have no reason to be a lawyer. And from the way I reported circumstances in our country, I might absolutely agree. The point that Valerio is missing a thing that very kindly he didn't say, but Italian lawyers are very skilled. We're very good into making settlements. That's why we have this capacity where we can handle the situation, we can take our cases to an end, to a successful end, because we have developed, because of this status of the Italian justice, till this point. So we need to get a solution fast, and it is quite often a common interest, also with insurers, also with banks. And back to the contingent issue, Valerio, only for a matter of age, doesn't remember that 10 or 15 years ago, under the liberalization process was taking place in Italy, a contingent fee was authorized for like a couple of years. And it worked because, as a matter of fact, the real truth is the contingent fee has always been a rule. As much forbidden, as much utilized by any lawyers, because we do that all the time. My father, when in the 40s, in the 50s, has created, as many other lawyers, the 10% principle. Thus, any tort claim might be ruled by a 10% agreement, contingent. And there is something that people knows and is accepted. It is against the law. But we're working on that because this liberalization. Yeah, we're working.
And that's why Marco just signed up for medical school.
Marcus, can you, for example, the fellow says, I don't have money to pay yet. Well, however, you do own the house. can you take collateral to cover your fee?
Se puoi
And if
per
the
fare
agent-
l'ipoteca sulla casa.
Put a
It's
mortgage.
very, no,
It's unethical.
it's considered unethical, even that. Yes,
When
question there.
you settle the case, Marco, when you settle the case with an insurance company, right?
Right.
Primarily, can you get the insurance company to pay you directly
yes.
and the client?
Yes, it is mandatory because
Okay.
there is another big issue in Italy that's since ever. There was the under the table money. So I think everyone knows about it. We have such a high level of taxation that for forever that everybody had tried to go under the table when we had 70%, 60% range of taxation. So to avoid this, insurers were imposed by the law to put the amount of the fees were agreed with the lawyer, and basically they pay differently. They make two bank transfer, one to the client, one to the victim, and one to the lawyer.
And question number two, when you settle the case in front of a judge, or if the judge makes a decision, and does he direct the company to pay you and the client from the judge?
Yes.
Do they do that too? So if you go to
can
full
also
trial?
ask the judge to acknowledge the money, the amount of the fees directly to you.
But
So
he
if
can
you
get,
go
he
to
can
the judge,
order.
I was not paid, so please address the money to myself. That is the rule, basically.
So the judge can direct, you get paid and the client gets paid.
Yes.
All right.
Do you keep an hourly schedule? Now you say no, but what happens in the case where you're discharged somewhere during the matter? In America, you get paid a quantum error, but you gotta show what you did. What happens in Italy? You've done some work and suddenly the client.
It is divided. Okay, well, what we have yesterday, if you remember, I spoke about parameters. This thing that is created by a legislator due to the space left by the tariff, were abrogated some few years ago. So parameter is something.
When he says tariff, he means hourly rate.
Yeah.
No, tariff is not hourly.
No.
Tariff
What
is
what Marco's saying is that the court has established a system so that there are fixed fees
not the court.
set
the law.
forward. Yeah.
The law.
Set forward. The law, but the minimums are determined by the Consiglio Nazionale Forense.
No, still the law.
Yeah. Ma i
No,
minimi.
Consiglio Nazionale Forense. Sì, no, i minimi non esistono.
No, i minimi quando tu non
Tu gli avvocati fanno una mia argomenti.
le tariffe
Dipende.
che tu dici, le tariffe professionali, chi le mette?
Deve la legge.
Adesso no, ma c'è adesso, se lui la sua domanda è se non ti pagano oggi, cioè se il cliente non ti paga, chi lo fa? I parametri della legge, che sono però dati al Ministero. Sì. So the ministry, not the court, the Ministry of Justice gives some parameters between which you can actually obtain the compensation if the client decides not to pay.
So with your example you gave before where the lawyer does all the work and then at the end,
Correct.
he says, I'm just charging you.
Correct.
I'm getting my uncle to do it.
You have to sue the client
Oh,
and get a fair compensation according to the parameters, which are, as Marco said yesterday also, that works also for personal injury, when you have the parameters given by the law, if that the client, the maximums that the client can
So
actually
wouldn't
recover.
wouldn't one big factor be the time you expended on the matter?
It would
And
be,
unless
it
you
would
keep-
be, but
unless you
really,
have a record of
Yeah,
it.
it is.
There-
It is a parameter, but you know, we divide it to simplify things. So what is it? Where you work to start a claim, this is a certain amount of flat rate money that it was stated by law from a minimum to a maximum, because according to the value of the affair, and this is what is stated by law. Second, you have the trial where you collect the evidence and you have the proofs. Then you have the decision, and it's divided into phases. Yeah, it is something you have to get used to, because it's something you have to You don't have to, you can say this before you, I went to 5 hearings, or 10 hearings, or 8 hearings.
So, by the way, because we don't want to be late for lunch, I just want to give you, I thank Marco as well, give him session, and thank you very much for joining.